live broadcast on your favorite football update channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful on this beautiful Thursday night with that 21 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. East African time. I don't know why. For a second, I thought it was a Friday because it is on Fridays that we come at around 9 p.m. Anyways, as I speak, the game between Nottingham Forest and Midtjylland is ongoing, and Omar Hudson has just forced the Midtjylland goalkeeper into a brilliant save. But earlier on, we did witness Oli Watkins, thanks to an assist from Emi Buendia, score the only goal that decided the tie between Lille and Aston Villa away in France. So the UEFA Europa League round of 16 first legs are ongoing today, as well as those in the UEFA Conference League, because as I speak, the Crystal Palace game is also 0-0 against, I think, Lanaka. I hope that's the correct pronunciation of the team. Ivan Guasand looking to put it in the back of the net there, but failed. Lanaka. So, yeah. That's what is happening. But tonight, we'll be focusing our attention once again on the UEFA Champions League in the context of Premier League teams and what their chances are of making it to the quarterfinals of this season is UEFA Champions League, because those midweek results were far from ideal, to say the least. So we'll be looking at that and more in this broadcast. So you'll indulge me as I update everything that I need to update, have our audios tested, make sure everything checks out before we even proceed any further for the purposes of this broadcast. So, but otherwise, I hope you've had a wonderful day throughout the course of today. Oh, Jesus Christ. Come on. How ugly does it have to be? Then there's an ongoing debate amongst Arsenal fans about who should be starting between Bukayo Saka and Noni Madueke. But that's a debate I've already put my voice to in the quickest and easiest of terms to say that based on current form, I would start Noni Madueke ahead of Bukayo Saka, based on the evidence that there is at the moment. So, apologies, I was just having our audios tested, so forgive if you had that one portrayed through. So yeah, we'll be talking about all those things and more in tonight's broadcast. A lot of Premier League managers seem to have got their tactics wrong in the context of the UEFA Champions League, including the veteran or the experienced Pep Guardiola during his trip to the Santiago Bernabeu. We'll be looking at that and more, really. But yeah, that will formulate the basis and context of a debate and discussion this evening. But before we even get into the discussion itself, I wish to say thank you to all our new subscribers, those that have recently joined the community. Thank you so much for contributing to the growth of our numbers. But also, I do implore you to not just subscribe, but to go ahead and watch the content. Go over to the video section, watch the content, over to the live section. Those who watch our live broadcasts long after they've ended, we appreciate you a great deal. So those who join us live, like the 10 of you that are already in this broadcast, thank you so much for joining us. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if it's your first time here. My name is Robert Kesakos, and I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda, where it's 25 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. On this Thursday night, with just a couple of minutes, 35 minutes away from the 13th of March. So incredible stuff. Like I said, our focus discussion tonight will be about the Premier League teams and their performances in the UEFA Champions League and what their chances are going into, whether we think, whether you think, whether I think they will make it to the quarterfinals of this year's UEFA Champions League, because we did rave about 6 Premier League teams, all advancing to the quarterfinals. But more importantly, we relished the idea of 5 Premier League teams making it to the top 8 of the UEFA Champions League. So the debate cannot fizzle down when it comes to the knockout stages, even though the context, in my opinion, changes slightly a bit. So hi, John. How are you doing tonight? How is your evening? Okay, there's something I need to check out. Chap. Okay. So yeah, that would be the basis for tonight's conversation. But for purposes of a reminder or a quick recap, here's what we witnessed in the UEFA Champions League at the round of 16 for the English Premier League teams thus far. First of all, Newcastle were held to a 1-1 draw by Barcelona at St. James's Park. Tottenham Hotspurs got obliterated by Atletico de Madrid, who beat them by 5-2 at the Riyadh Air Stadium in Spain. And then we had Liverpool being beaten by a 0 against Galatasaray. All that was on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we had Arsenal Arsenal holding Bayer Leverkusen to a 1-1 draw. While on the other side, we did witness Chelsea be given a thumping of a lifetime when they lost 5-2 against PSG. And then Real Madrid put 3 past Manchester City only in the first half. And that was all orchestrated by Fede Valverde with the first half hat-trick. So that was the performance of Premier League teams at the round of 16 first leg in the competition. So now the question is, what teams do you think will make it to the quarterfinals in the aftermath of those results? According to the supercomputer, it does predict that I think Arsenal have about more than 70% chance. It puts Newcastle second. No, it puts I think Liverpool second with about 51% chance. It puts Newcastle next to that. It thinks that Tottenham Hotspurs have less than 7% chance, I think. Manchester City have their chances quite slim, and so do Chelsea, really. So that is all based on the evidence of the results that that was all based on the results from the UEFA Champions League in those recent fixtures. So really, it's quite interesting or a debate to have. First of all, where do we begin with? For me, I think I'll start with teams that I do not think have a chance whatsoever of making it to the quarterfinals. Not because miracles are impossible to happen, but because other than miracles, I do not see how they fight themselves back into the respective ties. As is the case with football, nothing is impossible, particularly when we all have memories of Barcelona knocking out PSG after I think PSG had beaten Barcelona. Was it 5-1 or 4-1 in the first leg of the UEFA Champions League back in 2017? I think it was 2017, around that period, we all remember those memories. So in the wake of that context, I cannot argue that it is impossible, especially when I've been at the tail end of seeing what was deemed impossible at the time appear to be possible. So when I remember those memories or those moments from that season, it tells me one thing, that anything can happen in football. I'm trying to find out exactly. Yes, it was the 2016-2017 season. You say Liverpool, Newcastle, and Arsenal can still go through to the quarterfinals. That's Johnny's verdict. He thinks they can still go through. So, in that season, we did witness PSG beat up against Barcelona by 4-0 in Paris. Hi, George Fuente. How are you doing? Good to have you on the broadcast. So you had PSG beat up against Barcelona by 4-0 in the first leg. You remember that PSG side that were under the charges of Unai Emery. I think the goals came through Angelo Di Maria, Julian Draxler. Di Maria scored a brace in that one, as well as Edson Cavani. They were the goal scorers on the night. And yet, somehow, or for some reason, I think the world, perhaps at the time, including I, thought the comeback was almost going to be impossible. Why? Because I think the last team that had overturned a 3-0 deficit had been Deportivo La Coruña, back in years gone by. So other than that, it almost felt impossible or almost impractical that they would make it to from the round of 16 to the quarterfinals. And yet somehow they managed to do it. Because in the reverse fixture of that tie at the round of 16, Barcelona put 6 past PSG. They beat them by 6-1 at the Camp Nou to go through 6-5 on aggregate score. Cavani scored at the Camp Nou, but Luis Suarez, Kurzawa with an own goal, Lionel Messi with a penalty. There were 2 goals in stoppage time. Neymar picked up a brace in that fixture in the 80th minute and in the 91st minute, while Sergio Roberto scored in the 95th minute to send Barcelona through. It was as dramatic as a game as you'd have it. That's the biggest deficit, first leg deficit, that has ever been overturned. Now, the beauty for Tottenham Hotspurs and Chelsea is that their deficit is by 3 goals. And that's why I said, whereas it may take a miracle for those 2 sides to go through, it is not entirely impossible because we have evidence of such deficits being overturned before. So I cannot lock myself in to say it is impossible. That's a year that Real Madrid went all the way to the final and beat up against Juventus by 4-1. But once Barcelona made it through, I think they met Juventus at the quarterfinals, and Juventus knocked them out because Juventus won the first leg by 3-0, while the reverse fixture ended in a goalless draw. Real Madrid knocked out Bayern Munich at the quarterfinals because they beat Bayern Munich home and away 2-1 and 4-2 in the reverse fixture. Subsequently, the semifinals were Monaco, Juventus, and Real Madrid, Atletico de Madrid. And I think that was the time because Atletico Madrid played Real 3 times in a space of 4 years about, I think. In 2014, skipped them in 2015, played them in 2016, and in 2017. So Atletico Madrid were knocked out by Real Madrid in the semi-finals. Real Madrid won the first leg by 3-0, while Atletico de Madrid won the reverse fixture by 2-1. So Real Madrid went through 4-2 on aggregate score at the time. Now, fast forward. First of all, what makes it hard for teams like Tottenham, why I think it would require a miracle for them to go through, is because whereas their own defeat at the Riyadh Air Stadium was not because largely of the strength of Atletico Madrid, but more to the poor display of Tottenham themselves and their defensive errors, 2 from the goalkeeper and Mickey van der Ven's slip, I believe that Atletico de Madrid are strong enough to go to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and get a result. They may not win, but they may not lose. Or if they were to lose, I do not think they're going to go there and lose by a margin of 4-0 without scoring for Tottenham Hotspurs to then go through, because Tottenham Hotspurs need to win the reverse fixture similar to Chelsea by 4-0 without Atletico de Madrid scoring for them to guarantee their spot in the finals. In the quarterfinals. Now, first of all, I look at the manager in Igor Tudor. He lacks the tactical ingenuity to sort of orchestrate that kind of result based on the evidence that we are riding on. He's been charged 4 games at Tottenham Hotspurs and he's not won a single one of them. He's not even drawn a single one of them. He's lost all of them. He conceded 5 against Atletico. He conceded 4 against Arsenal. He conceded 3 against Crystal Palace. How many goals is that? Isn't that already, 12? 12 goals. And then he conceded 2 against Fulham. So 14 goals conceded. How many have they scored? They scored 1 against Arsenal, 2 against Atletico, 1 against Fulham, and then 1 against Crystal Palace. They scored 5, conceded 14. As poor. So I lack the evidence to even back him. So that's why I think that Tottenham Hotspurs will be knocked out at the hands of Atletico de Madrid. Number 2 is Chelsea versus PSG. Whereas I thought that PSG had all the motivations to orchestrate a revenge and that they had the technical ability and the player power to do it, based on the evidence of PSG's recent results across all competitions, including the UEFA Champions League, did not point in the direction that they were capable of putting 5 past Chelsea. Not one bit. Because, one, PSG, for the second time of asking, went through the playoffs. But prior to the playoffs, in their final 3 games of the league phase of the UEFA Champions League, what had happened was they did not win any single fixture in the last 3 games. They drew in a goalless draw against Athletic Bilbao at San Mamés. They went to Sporting Lisbon and lost by 2-1, returned at home and shared the spoils with Newcastle in a 1-1 draw. That's at the league phase. Then we went to the playoffs and they were underwhelming against Monaco. A 2-2 draw in the reverse fixture at the Parc des Princes against the 10-man Monaco for whom Koulibaly had been sent off. Then in the earlier fixture, PSG had to come from 2 goals down to win 3-2 in a game for which Monaco had again been reduced to 10 men. So, based on that evidence and track record, if albeit they are the reigning champions, I did not think they were going to put 5 past Chelsea. And the result itself, the final scoreline, is perhaps not indicative of the kind of performance that Chelsea quite put in. Because to be fair to you, Chelsea did quite okay for 75 minutes. It's in the latter stages of the game that they literally gave it away. So first of all, my personal prediction was that it would end in a 2-2 draw at Parc des Princes. And at some point, it was 2-2 because while PSG went ahead through Bradley Barcola, Chelsea responded through Malo Gusto. And then Ousmane Dembele made it 2 before halftime. So it was 2-1. In the second half, Desli Doué decided to sleep on the job. Pedro Neto steals the ball, goes on a quick break, and bam, it's a goal through Enzo Fernandez, who had provided the assist for the first goal for Malo Gusto. And it's 2-2. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's the kind of game I obviously expected. And then, the game somehow ran out of Chelsea's hands. And this was in the latter stages of the game. As the evidence will show, first of all, Vitinha's goal comes in the 74th minute. Just a moment. Oh, Nottingham Forest really pressing down on Midtjylland. So, in other words, Chelsea had done okay for 70 minutes. They stayed in the game. They competed well enough. I thought they were actually good. And so were PSG. PSG looked the better side. They dominated possession. They looked sharper. They created more goal-scoring chances. But Chelsea were in the game. They stayed in the game. And perhaps that sort of blindfolded them into thinking that they could play a game of their preference. And yet, PSG is a team so good when it comes to the counter press. And as you will see, all the subsequent 3 goals were a result of that brilliant press from PSG. First of all, the third goal is a mistake by the goalkeeper, Philippe Jacquinson, as he attempts to play it out from the back. He gets the back pass, I think, from Wesley Fofana. Now, in attempting to sort of play it centrally, the ball is intercepted by Bradley Barcola, who plays it to Kivica Kvaratskhelia, who then passes it to Vitinha, and bang, he scores. he sort of flips the ball above the goalkeeper, and it's 3-2. Then you look at the fourth goal. Chelsea failed to close down the space on Kivica Kvaratskhelia. If you've watched Kivica Kvaratskhelia long enough, you'd know he's capable of scoring that kind of goal. So they accorded him all the space he needed, and he had them. So Chelsea had that drop off in form and in concentration. Then the fifth goal is a counter-attack. Achraf Hakimi with the cutback, who is at the center of it, Kivica Kvaratskhelia. 2 goals, 1 assist, bang. He came off the bench. And that was the difference. So, if I assess Chelsea for the first 70 minutes of the game, they are capable, very capable, of knocking out PSG. But when I assess them further, on the last quarter of the game or the final 20 minutes, then you do not see a chance of them knocking out PSG. Similarly to Tottenham Hotspurs, the case for PSG is that they have this whole mountain to climb because they need to win that game by 4-0 to ensure that they go through, or alternatively, at least win by 3-0 in normal time and after extra time, and then take the game to penalties. In other words, regardless of the scoreline, in normal time and extra time, the goal difference for Chelsea has to be by 3 goals. In other words, we need to have an equivalent aggregate score. So in other words, in normal time or after extra time, Chelsea can win 4-1 and we still go to penalties. The same way, PSG lost by 0-0 at Parc des Princes against Liverpool at the round of 16 last season, came to Anfield, won it by 0-0 in normal time and after extra time, and it went to penalties. That's what they need. Are they capable of that? Now, Chelsea are capable of scoring as many goals as PSG scored against them yesterday. The question is, however, for me, can they score all those goals without conceding just as much? That backline did not convince me that they are capable of not conceding just as much. Because where they may score 5, at least you can bet that PSG could score 2 or could score 3. So I believe Chelsea's chances of making it to the quarterfinals are really, really slim. Now, hear me on this. If you ask me, between Tottenham Hotspurs and Chelsea, who has a slightly better chance to go through, I'd say, based on pedigree, Chelsea have the chance. They are, first of all, I think they are 3-time finalists, 2008, 2012, and 2021. They've won it twice, 2012 and 2021. Tottenham are only 1-time finalists in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned. Do not tell me about the European Cup. So that means on pedigree, Chelsea could have it better. In any case, the Chelsea have better pedigree in the competition than even PSG. That's the reality of it. But unfortunately, based on the form, or also and the talent and the managers on the opposite ends of the dugout, I do not see Chelsea advancing. So that means 2 English Premier League teams are already out. Just on that note, it means we're left with 4. Who are the 4? Newcastle, Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City. Let's start with Man City. Starting off of the point of pedigree, we know that it's not even worth putting on the weighing scale to measure the pedigree of Real Madrid versus that of Man City. It's not worth the light of day to even put it on a weighing scale, because Real Madrid are the most successful team in the competition. We spoke about this during the preview show for that game, and we said regardless of what you think about Real Madrid or how poor they look this season, thus far, whatever you think of them, they have the pedigree in the competition, that they look like a different monster, a different team altogether once they decide to switch it on in the UEFA Champions League. Yesterday, I was watching a clip by Thierry Henry, who said he doesn't know what goes into those players when they wear that white shirt on a UEFA Champions League night. And he said, perhaps, if he had not been a Barca person, maybe putting on that shirt would help grow his hair back. That's how magical it feels. That's how magical it feels. You know, that's how good Real Madrid can be on a night. Meanwhile, Morgan Gibbs-White has had an attempt deflected wide, but was close to scoring to make it 1-0 for Nottingham Forest. So, Manchester City have a very good manager in Pep Guardiola. In Pep Guardiola, they have a manager with more experience than Alvaro Arbeloa can ever dream of at this stage in his career. In terms of his squad, when it comes to experience of winning multiple titles, I think his overall squad is better than that of Real Madrid, especially given how long he's been with Man City. But now, with all the good that Man City came into the game with, I thought Pep Guardiola was complacent. How? He went to the Santiago Bernabeu and played with a single pivot of Rodrigo Hernandez Cascante. Ahead of him, or along with him, he put an attacking midfielder in Bernardo Silva. And then he flooded his team with 3 wingers in Savinho, Antoine Semenyo, Jeremy Doku, and then brought Erling Haaland. For some reason, I do not know what persuaded him to put Nico O'Reilly at left back. Maybe he wanted that attacking, overlapping fullback. And it's not to say, because we all know for a fact that Nico O'Reilly has played there before, but in recent games, he's been playing him as an attacking midfielder, as a 10. That's his preferred position. That's where he grew up playing. So, on the other side, again, so it was a poor team selection for Pep Guardiola. DLS Gamer says Pep overrates teams. Now, that's what I'm saying. Pep Guardiola tactically got it wrong. First of all, Real Madrid came in that game with a whole host of injuries. Alvaro Carreras, who has been by far their best left back. They were without Eder Militao, David Alaba. All those were absent through injury. Jude Bellingham was absent. Camavinga was just returning, I think, from injury. Kylian Mbappe was missing. Rodrigo Goes this season is as good as done. You remember, he's the one who scored what turned out to be a consolation in the when they met in the league phase, and Manchester City won there by 2-1. Goes from Brad Erling Haaland's penalty late on in the game, as well as Nico O'Reilly. Now, but with Real Madrid missing as many as those pieces, they knew what their weakness was, tactically speaking. First of all, I loved how what's his name? Fede Valverde provided cover for Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't even know how he was doing it. Racing forward, scoring all the 3 goals, but also bracing back just in time to provide sufficient cover for Alexander Trent Arnold, because they knew what we all know, that Alexander Trent Arnold can oftentimes be exposed defensively. And he was against a very energetic, electric, and physically imposing winger in Jeremy Doku. When you go back to that win that I just mentioned in December for Manchester City, Jeremy Doku was a standout player in that fixture. And yesterday, for all the good that Man City fairly looked in the first half, their attacks were going through Jeremy Doku. And I remember at one time he put a decent cross that cut through the entire box with no Manchester City player there to put his foot to it. So, in other words, Real Madrid knew that if we let Alexander Trent-Arnold be exposed, we could be punished. So they provided cover for him. First goal, Thibaut Courtois goes long, Nico O'Reilly gets beaten. Now, I've reviewed the first goal of Real Madrid multiple times, and I still do not know why. And I still do not know why Gianluigi Donnarumma does not put his hand to that ball. Because as Fede Valverde dribbles past him, the ball is too close enough to his body for him to put his arm to it and perhaps push it out of the way or even outside for a corner kick. But actually, at first I thought he had hesitated. But when you review the footage, it looks like he even withdraws. And I said, the only point of defense he can have, or that I can think of him having, is that he imagined to have overplayed his hand. In other words, he had exceeded the bounds of the 18-yard box, that any touch of that ball would have culminated into a red card. That's the only school of thought that I can come to. Other than that, I mean, if it were an African football, we'll be saying he fixed the game. We'll be saying investigate the goalkeeper. And in no typical African style, I've seen people tweeting that video and saying investigate Gianluigi Donnarumma, because he had an opportunity to put his hand to that ball. And perhaps if he had, maybe we'll be discussing an entirely different result. Now, because Manchester City were exposed in midfield, there's nobody to provide cover and support for the backline. As soon as that goal goes in and game is being played on, I'm thinking to myself, we need to see Vinicius Jr. rise to the occasion tonight, because in the preview, I said it would require some level of individual brilliancy that Vinicius Jr., in the absence of Kylian Mbappe, need to rise to the occasion and carry the team forward. Whereas it wasn't him that rose to the occasion, it was Fede Valverde in this case. Vini also had a hand in the game because he provided the pre-assist for the second goal. It was his attempted pass that Ruben Diaz intercepted to flick on into the direction of Fede Valverde. First touch sets him up, second touch, bang, goal. Gianluigi Donnarumma do not look impressive in that goal as well. Then the third goal. The Manchester City defense were caught napping. McGahey was watching the kites in the sky. I don't know if he was admiring the covered rooftop of the Santiago Bernabeu. Ruben Diaz looked like he was waiting for somebody to press a button on him for him to start moving, because Brahim Diaz flicks that ball over his head, and as it drops in the face or in the front of McKay, who is ball watching and then suddenly caught off guard or hesitant, then Fede Valverde nicks it above him before banging it into the back of the net, and it's 3-0. But before even those goals came, we had seen Brahim Diaz do a number of McKay. He looked so shambolic. He looked like he was still playing for Crystal Palace and that they were playing against Real Madrid. He looked off of it. He looked like he was at the biggest stage of his career, and maybe he was indeed. So he looked poor. But that's to say, Pep Guardiola got it tactically wrong. With his choice of left back, with his choice of starting Savinho ahead of the likes of Ryan Cherki, who has been arguably his best player, midfield attacking player, creatively and otherwise. He left Phil Foden on the bench. We know what Phil Foden on a good day is capable of giving you. But Erling Haaland barely had a sniff in that game. He had a very poor game that I do not know why it took as long as it did for him to be withdrawn for Omar Mamouche. Anton Semenyo struggled against Falan Bendi. Now, with that 3-0 sort of deficit, it's not impossible for a team like Manchester City to go through, to beat Real Madrid 5-1, and they go through, to beat Real Madrid by 4 goals to nil, and they go through. Manchester City, on a given day, inside the Etihad Stadium, are capable of anything. Based on Pep Guardiola's pedigree or ingenuity as a manager, tactically and everything, they are capable of that. Based on the player quality that they do have, especially in their forward lines, midfield and onwards. You have a Ballon d'Or winner in midfield. You have your captain in Bernardo Silva. You have Brian Cheki, who has been one of the best attacking midfielders. You have a winger who is very electric in Jeremy Doku. You have Anton Semenyo on the other side. You have Brad Erling Haaland, who is off form, yes, but can bang in the goals. When it comes to the back line, you're okay. You have a John Stones, you have a Ruben Diaz, you have a Ryan Atnori, you have a Matthias Nunes. You know? And guess what? It wasn't Matthias Nunes at right back, it was Kushanov. So, on paper, they are capable. But will they advance? Their chances of advancing are very slim because it is Real Madrid they are facing. It is Real Madrid we're talking about. So they made it difficult for themselves by failing to score even a single goal at the Santiago Bernabeu. Ordinarily, most of the times that Manchester City have gone to the Santiago Bernabeu and get beat, they at least scored a goal. They had something to go back to the Etihad Stadium with. That wasn't the case yesterday. Now, a layman, a lay football follower can easily argue that Pep Guardiola intended to lose that game. But like I often make the argument, there's no manager that sets himself up to fail. So they'll have it all to do in the reverse fixture. But I find it very hard to believe. I find it very difficult to conceptualize that they will advance at the expense of Real Madrid. In other words, what that would put us, that would imply that 3 Premier League teams are out. Next is a team that had a very decent performance in the first leg, and that was Newcastle against a poor Barcelona on the day. But as luck was not on their side, they still conceded a late penalty that was converted by Lamine Yamal to set off a 1-1 draw. They deserved to win that game, Newcastle. Now, based on their first leg performance, I would argue they have a better chance of advancing to the quarterfinals. The only unfortunate thing for them is that they are going to the Camp Nou. They are going to Spain. Now, that's a whole different stage altogether. First of all, Camp Nou on the playing turf looks wider than most playing turfs. When you look at the scope of the pitch, Barcelona are so comfortable in there. Recently, we saw them put 3 past Atletico de Madrid in the reverse fixture of the semi-finals of the Copa del Rey after losing 4-0 the first leg. You know, Newcastle really put themselves in a good position with their first leg performance. Unfortunately for Newcastle, pedigree is not on their side. They're going to be away from home. They're up against 5-time champions. Yes, they've not won it in the last 10 years because the last time they won the Champions League was back in 2015. That's for Barcelona, and that's the last time they played a Champions League final. But Barcelona have the upper hand by the virtue of the fact that they are going to be at home. You know, by the virtue of the fact that they are going to be at home, that is what puts Barcelona at the advantage of making it through at the expense of Newcastle. Like I said, Newcastle had a really, really good performance. If they can replicate the same performance in the reverse fixture, they will have a chance. But if it does not materialize that way, then they'll be in for a long night. So here's what the Opita supercomputer predicted. It gave Arsenal 78.1% to advance to the quarterfinals, Liverpool 51.4% chances of advancing to the quarterfinals. It put Newcastle at a 31.9%, relatively 32%, which means Barcelona have a 68% chance of making it through. So that in itself tells you the sort of size of mountain they have to climb, not because of their goal deficit, but because of the venue that they are going to. You know? Then it put Manchester City at 17.1%. That means Real Madrid have what? 83% chance of making it through, 82.9% chance. It put Chelsea at a modest 7%. That means PSG have 93% chance of making it through. Of course, these are only predictions. It's a supercomputer, looking at a couple of sets of data and considerations and making its own predictions. And it put Tottenham Hotspur at a 3.3% chance. That means that Atletico de Madrid have a 96.7% chance of advancing. But it's all based on the results from the first leg. So, Newcastle, my only hope for Newcastle would be for them to have back their captain in Bruno Guimaraes. He's been out through a hamstring injury. If they could have him back and they play in that midfield of Sandro Tonali, Joelinton, and Bruno Guimaraes, it would give them a good fighting chance or a better fighting chance in terms of their odds as compared to them having Jacob Ramsey, because Bruno Guimaraes can be quite relentless. And playing inside that appearingly wider Camp Nou stadium or pitch, you need to have the running legs to cover all the ground, because Barcelona know how to boss that, that tough, So Newcastle will be perhaps hoping, not against hope, they do have the hope that perhaps they can conjure up something at Camp Nou to have a fighting chance. Nice orange juice. It's not orange juice, by the way. It's a mixture of passion fruit and mango. I made it myself, by the way. Thanks, Pedri. How are you doing, my brother? So good that you join us in time when we're discussing the chances of Newcastle advancing at the expense of Barcelona. So and I need to have a review of Barcelona's Champions League results for this year. So first of all, you've had Barcelona rarely falter at home. That's the honest bit. Even when you say no chance, God willing, I hope they do not win. Now you're speaking as a fan. You say you need the UEFA Champions League title. So, first of all, before the 1-1 draw against Newcastle, Barcelona's final Champions League game came against Copenhagen, and I think they won that one by 4-1. Prior to that, they had won away to Slavia Praha by 4-2. Then they had an encounter, I think. Oh, did I miss a game? Prior to that, they had a game against, let me see, Frankfurt, who they beat by 2-1. That was at home. That was in late December. Then still in the UEFA Champions League, It's away that they lost to Chelsea. Back at home, they had done, because they also have a 3-3 draw, but that was away in Belgium against Club Brugge. At home, they beat Olympiacos 6-1. I think that was very early on in the season. In other words, the only game they lost at home in the UEFA Champions League was against PSG. They lost by 2-1, and that was on the 1st of October. Seny Mayuru and Goncalo Ramos, the goal scorers, while Ferran Torres scored what turned out to be a mere consolation for Barcelona on that occasion. So, in other words, they do not often lose matches at home. That's for Barcelona. So, if you're going to beat them, you may need perhaps a miracle. You'll have to pray for perhaps a miracle. So, but that's how they've been behaving, at least in as far as the UEFA Champions League is concerned. And so, yeah. And also, they have, in head-to-head, they have the better record against Newcastle. So, I find Newcastle's chances of advancing to the quarterfinals quite very minimal. That means the chance of 4 Premier League teams going out at the round of 16 is significantly high, or really, really high. And that's not good news for you, the Premier League fans out there who, who hold the Premier League in high regard. But the one thing I wanted to say before we move on to Liverpool and Arsenal's chances of making it to the quarterfinals of the same competition is that, do you think Tottenham will get relegated? If they stick with Igor Tudor, their chances are increasing of getting relegated. Because they have a game, I think, coming up I think on March the 30th, should be against, they play against Liverpool, after which I think they're supposed to play Nottingham Forest. So there's a chance. A lot of people were surprised, just as much as I was, that Igor Tudor did not get sacked in the aftermath of that defeat against Atletico de Madrid. So this Sunday, they will be playing away to Liverpool. It will be the late kickoff at 7:30 p.m. Then the game between, then the subsequent weekend, they'll play on Sunday away to Tottenham Hotspur, and we know how poor Tottenham Hotspur have been at home. Now, that will be a relegation battle game between the two sides. In between there, they'll have had a reverse fixture against Atletico de Madrid in the UEFA Champions League. Based on the evidence of the results thus far, it is a possibility that Tottenham could get relegated. I've already seen Tottenham Hotspur fans who wish that they had stuck with Thomas Frank, because Igor Tudor has not improved them one bit. And I don't know if the Liverpool game is the last roll in the dice for him, in as far as his bosses are concerned. But even that is a big ask. It's quite a big ask in as far as the game is concerned. You see, United lad says, and if they do get relegated, the way fans will show up like, wow, this stadium is huge. It's like the UFO. Let me tell you, every time Tottenham Hotspurs have been shambolic, the one thing that their fans cling onto is the beauty of their stadium. That's how they have to show for it. Of course, and their triumph in the UEFA Europa League final last season. But other than that, there's not much. And for me, I've always argued that even with all their injury troubles that you think that they have, they still have a squad good enough to fight and not get relegated. Because you do not tell me you have £60 million players in Xavi Simons, in Dominic Solanke, in Richarlison, you have Rando Kolomwani on loan, You first of all, I thought it was wrong to let go of Brennan Johnson, but bygones are bygones. You have a Uvis Bissouma, £25 million player in that midfield. You have an unknown Joao Paulinho with all his experience. You have a Matthias Tel, who you spent on about 35 million quid to secure his services. You have a Mickey van de Ven. You have a Christian Romero. You have a Destin, a Dijat Space. You have your Achai Gray. You have a Vicario. In terms of pound for pound, when they read out their team, it is still decent enough and a good manager to get certain results. They may not win all the games. Nobody expects them to win all games, but do not get obliterated by Crystal Palace. Of course, that was in part to blame on Mickey van der Ven because he made a stupid mistake. Not even a mistake. Made a stupid decision. But you look at, ever since the turn of the new year, and I do not know whether it still qualifies to be called a new year, well, when we are in almost completing the first quarter of it. But they are winless across all competitions. They've forgotten what it looks like to win. Trust me, even if we go to Sunday and they are leading by 0-0 in the 90th minute away to Liverpool, I would still have a belief at the back of my mind that they will consider an equalizer at some point. Why? Because they can't hold on to nothing. United lad, you say, it's a good stadium, but not worth it. Sorry, that's a Pedri. Now, to be honest, or to be fair, it is a beautiful stadium. World class. No doubts about that. They deserve to relish in it. You say Romero barely plays, he's always on a red card. Exactly, but he's their captain. He's their captain. You see, one of the hallmarks of a good player, forget being world class, forget being brilliant, forget being exceptional. One of the hallmarks of a good player is availability. In terms of being injury-free most of the time. And meanwhile, Midtjylland just rattled the the Nottingham Forest crossbar. It's been available. You know, when you look at players like James Maddison, as good as he looks, for as long as you're not available to show us that talent that you're so good with, we're not going to rate you. We're not going to rate you because you're almost always injured. For Christian Romero, it's disciplinary issues. It's not oftentimes injury. And now, discipline is a key part to that. Reason as to why players like Joey Barton did not go on to have very stellar careers because his discipline was shambolic. It was always in question. You'll only find a few outliers, the likes of Eric Cantona. I don't know what level you put Balotelli, for you to be an indisciplined player and still have a good track record in the game. You know? So, United lad, you're right about Christian Romero. He's their captain. He's always attacking the club's hierarchy, regardless of what his opinions are. He had little respect for Thomas Frank. He's always getting stupid red cards. Now, there's a red card that a player will get, and you feel, okay, maybe they've been hard done by the referee or the decision makers, or it is worthy that, okay, maybe it's a mistake, they were late for a challenge. But oftentimes, for Christian Romero, it's going to be a stupid red card. And when I say stupid, it means they are at fault. You know? That they are at fault. There's a couple of red cards that you look at and think to yourself, yeah, that was maybe a bit harsh. But for him, it's always the other way around. And do you think Man United are in the title race? No, I don't think so. And I don't think Man United fans think they are in the title race. Mathematically, they can win it. That's the fact part of it. But I do not think they are in it. It's unfortunately for them, it's a little too late in the season for them to be in the title conversation. And I've seen all the conversations from in the different forums in which I am in when it comes to Man United fans speaking about their team. And they feel that if Ruben Amorim had been relieved of his duties much earlier on in the season, perhaps they would have had a shot at the Premier League title. But we will never know. But the one thing they have a good shot at is finishing in the top four, and that qualifying for UEFA Champions League football, which will be of tremendous help or rescue to their finances, because they do have some financial obligations to fulfill. I think last I checked, they have to pay about £194 million in transfer fees owed to respective clubs for the transfer of certain players that are due. Financial year, they have to pay, I think, is it interest on debt and things like that. So they have so many financial obligations. And that's why, for me, I thought, and yet they have to be active in the transfer window in itself, because they need to overhaul their midfield, or at least they need a minimum of two central midfielders. They need a holding midfielder, and then they need a number 8 to deputize, or to either to deputize or to start ahead of Kobe Mino. And then if they cancel off Manuel Ugarte, then they will need another number 6, beyond just the replacement of Casemiro, who, in my opinion, I do not think they should be letting go. And meanwhile, it's raining quite heavily at the City ground. Can see those fans feeling the chills of the weather. But anyways, guys, allow me run back to the UEFA Champions League, and we wrap up on the context of Premier League teams in regards to their chances of qualifying to the round of 16. Now, the next team I will go to is Liverpool. Liverpool lost by 1-0 in Turkey. They do not have a good record against Galatasaray. That's the unfortunate bit. I think they've met 7 times, and Liverpool have only won 1 fixture. Now, earlier on in the season, still at the league phase, they had gone to Turkey and lost by 1-0, that goal by Victor Osimhen. This time around, it was Mario Lemina, a former Wolverhampton Wanderers midfielder who also plays for the Gabonese national team, that was the goal scorer in that one. Now, it was a very open end-to-end kind of game. Nottingham Forest are really, really sleeping on the job here. They're letting their chances go to waste, and I do not think they will have many of those. Otherwise, they may live to regret them. So, Liverpool, it was a very open-ended game, sort of end-to-end kind of game, but their finishing touch, their finishing product was really, really poor. Now, if there's one thing European football managers dread, is a European night or a UEFA Champions League night trip to Anfield. They hate it. They dread it. Meanwhile, it's also raining in the Crystal Palace game. Is it raining all over the UK? United lad, where are you from? I don't know. If you're from the UK, let us know. Is it raining everywhere in the UK today? Anyways, so managers will tell you, Arsene Wenger will tell you, Sir Alex Ferguson will tell you, Pep Guardiola will tell you, and other European managers or giant teams that you've heard of. Barcelona will tell you that the last place you want to go to is Anfield on a UEFA Champions League night or on a European night. Now, whereas the stadium in itself has the record or the good reputation for it when it comes to a UEFA Champions League night, I do not think Arne Slot has the record to back himself. And particularly this season, Liverpool have looked bang average. United lad says, yep, it's raining. Okay. I think that's somebody used to say the UK weather is so bad that oftentimes it's raining. If it's not raining, it will be snowing. I don't know if that's true for all parts of the UK. I've never been to the UK. I've never left Uganda. But anyways, and what do you think of Michael Carrick as a manager? United lad, allow me to answer you, give you my whole overview about Michael Carrick when I wrap up with this Liverpool and Arsenal issue in the context of the UEFA Champions League. But also, just as a kind reminder, there is a video on the channel under the video section where I discuss what type of manager Manchester United need. I did not give no conclusion. I wanted to leave the debate open for Manchester United fans to draw to their own conclusion with the context I painted. It's about 25 minutes. Perhaps you can check it out after this broadcast. So, Liverpool and Arne Slot. Arne Slot has looked bang average this season, and so have Liverpool the entirety of the season across multiple competitions. However, I still fancy their chances of advancing to the quarterfinals. First of all, I believe that a one goal lead margin is too slim an advantage to have in a UEFA Champions League, especially when we know that our goal rules no longer count. So basically, Liverpool, all they need to win is by 2 goals to nil, by 3 goals to 1. Easier said than done, but I fancy their chances that they are capable of switching it on. We've seen them take on Newcastle there and beaten them by 4 goals to 1 at Anfield this season. That was in the Premier League. We've seen them host Karabakh. Of course, Galatasaray miles ahead of Karabakh, but they put 6 past them. We've seen them go to Eintracht Frankfurt and put 5 past Frankfurt in Germany. Again, yes, you would make the argument that perhaps Frankfurt are not as good as, you have Galatasaray in terms of player quality and everything to do in that regard. But still, you do think that they do have a chance, that they are capable of scoring the goals when they have Hugo Ekitike is bang on, when Florian Wirtz switches on, when Salah is hardly switched it on this season. But when Szoboszlai switches it on, they can go and beat up against Galatasaray quite convincingly, even by 2 goals to 0, and they advance to the quarterfinals. So I'll back Liverpool to advance. It won't be easy, but I fancy their chances of going through. Then you have Arsenal versus Bayer Leverkusen. What football club do you support? United lad, thank you for asking. First of all, I love football in general, just as a sport. Now, in terms of being aligned to a particular club, I support Real Madrid, I do support Arsenal, I do support Brazil as a national team, and the Uganda Cranes. There. On any given day, I'll be supporting the underdog if they're up against a big team, usually. But I just love football in general. So, anyways, then moving on to Arsenal. Arsenal struggled against Bayer Leverkusen to create chances because Bayer Leverkusen played with that bit of low block, especially when they retreated to the defensive side of them. Bukayo Saka struggled in 1v1 situations. Of course, they never let him go one-on-one with Edmond Tapsoba. He was usually marked by 2 players. Alex Grimaldo always up there. They did the same thing to Gabriel Martinelli on the other side. They denied them the spaces to operate in. But again, Arsenal it's the same problem that they've dealt with throughout the entire campaign, even going back to last season. They struggle against teams that, play with a low block. Whereas their alternative this season to that has been, trying to find goals through set pieces and predominantly corners. We saw how UEFA referees are not willing to entertain the shenanigans of set-piece play, especially when it comes to corners, that is indicative or evidence in English Premier League football. Now, whereas I do not condone the idea of everything being worthy of a yellow card, whatever the referee deems to be a foul, in the build-up to a corner kick, I understand where they're coming from. But it's not like that bit of chaos in the box during a corner kick is something of today. No, it's been there all the time. It's as old as football itself. Usually, set pieces, especially corner kicks, a bit chaotic, because we know, first of all, you have players crammed up in a small space. The 22 players that occupy the entire pitch, you have, let's say, about at least 17 or 16 players crammed in that 18 yards box or 16-yard box thereabout, waiting to fight for that one ball. So it's bound to be unpretty, to say the least. But when it comes to blocking goalkeepers, I think referees can just summon players and say, I do not want any blocking, any pushing and shoving, this dragging and that, because yesterday I did not think that was worthy of a yellow card that was issued to Kai Havertz and one of the Bayer Leverkusen players in the build-up to a corner kick. So, anyways, but I do fancy Arsenal's chances in the reverse fixture at the Emirates Stadium. First of all, I think they've only conceded 1 goal. No, not just 1 goal. They've conceded 3 goals in the UEFA Champions League at the Emirates Stadium. So I think, am I missing something? Okay. And do you think Lemans is better than De Gea? Wow. Okay, we'll get to discuss Lemans in a bit. So I do fancy Arsenal's chances to get the better of Bayer Leverkusen. They've done it before, although in a different context. Okay, not different context, but in a different time. That was back in 2002, 2001, 2002 season. They managed to beat up against Bayer Leverkusen by 4-1. Goals from Robert Pires, Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, and Dennis Bergkamp. And they overcame. But if Bayer Leverkusen can come to the Emirates Stadium and be as disciplined as they were in Germany, then Arsenal will be in for a very, very long night. But if Arsenal can score fast in that game, then perhaps it may cause Bayer Leverkusen to open up a little bit. And once you open yourself up a little bit, as we have evidenced during the league phase of the UEFA Champions League, Arsenal will be really, really capable of hurting you, perhaps scoring more than just one. So I'll sort of back Arsenal to get the better of Bayer Leverkusen and advance through. Although in football anything is possible, Arsenal can equally be knocked out. Although I'd say Arsenal have 60% chance and 40% chance for Bayer Leverkusen. For me, I won't be like the supercomputer that put it at 78 point something percent. Anyways, let's respond to United Laddie's questions. What do you think of Michael Carrick as a manager? First of all, I think he's a good guy. I think he's an okay guy. Now, I understand his CV is short or limited, that he only has those interim stints with Man United to his CV and his time at Middlesbrough. First of all, having played at Manchester United, he knows the club in and out. The same advantage that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did, even though eventually it did not work out so well for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But I look at Michael Carrick as this sort of, with his calm demeanor, the Carlo Ancelotti kind of type of manager. That calm demeanor, he's not an extremist in terms of, this player management and all. Now, in the video I was referring to you, to go and watch over there on the channel, to go over on the channel under the video section and you watch, perhaps I should be sourcing it and putting it down for you in the comment section so that after this podcast, you can go check it out, is when I do make two comparisons. First of all, in terms of types of managers, there are tactical managers and then there are what I call player managers, or when I say player managers, I mean the gentleman kind of, the managers that are not overly obsessed with the tactics of the game, but on a larger scale are more good player. They do a lot of good player management. That's why I've cited for you the example of Carlo Ancelotti. So Michael Carrick has that sort of calmness and quietness to him that alludes to the idea that he falls in that category. He's not overly obsessed with tactics. He's not overly obsessed with control over players, what they do and when they do it. He has the good interpersonal skills. A lot of players that have spoken about Carlo Ancelotti have suggested that he handles things in a father figure. So that's the link to the video I'm referring to, you, United Lad. So there's two types. So you have the likes of Xabi Alonso, Mikel Arteta, Pep Guardiola, Enzo Maresca, Roberto Di Zerbi. Those are the sort of managers that are obsessed with statistics. With the tactical side of the game, how they want their team to play, how they want them to behave, the structure of the team, the nitty-gritties of the game, some of the things that other managers may overlook, those kinds of managers. But it doesn't stop at the obsession of the statistics, because I remember Pep Guardiola is particularly cited as having having made a phone call to Lionel Messi at about 1 or 2 a.m. ahead of an El Clasico game, just to tell him about how he wants him to behave tactically in a game. That's the kind of manager that I'm talking about. So the question is, do Man United need that kind of manager, or they need a manager the type of Michael Carrick, the gentleman, very easygoing, the kind of manager that is not going to drill you into very long hours of training. Because, first of all, I've had Man United players oftentimes moan about the long hours of training. They did it under Erik Ten Hag. They did the same under Ruben Amorim. Now, for one, I do not think they should be moaning about how long they train for. Not one bit. I do not think so. But, so when you look at the touch of Michael Carrick, it gives you that illusion that he's a laid-back guy. He's not going to be too stringent on you, especially when it comes to, oh, you are 2 minutes late and therefore you should be paying penalty ABCD. He's not going to put you through 4 hours of drills. No, he will put you into shorter drills of 1-2 hours, and then, you're done and gone. And that's what players have spoken about him. And that's why you've seen there's been a change of an aura about Man United players and how they behave even on and off the pitch. You're hearing less hula baloo from the behind the scenes in a way. Why? Because he sort of brought that calmness to the team. And then the other thing he's done, he's played players in their rightful positions. Instead of playing Bruno Fernandes as an 8, play him as a 10. He'll get you the goals. He'll get you the assists that you need. Play Kobe Mainoo. He's arguably one of Man United's best players when it comes to young talents that have come through the ranks. We saw how good he was at the Euro 2024 when England went all the way to the final before losing to Spain by 2-1. And yet Ruben Amorim was telling the world that he could not accommodate him in the same team. You have Diego Dalot playing as your right back, or Nusama Zorui on another given day. You have your Luke Shaw. For some reason, he's been the fittest. He's looked the fittest he has ever looked all throughout the entire campaign. United Lad says, sorry, Football Tribe, I have to go now. It's getting late where I live. All right. Thank you so much, United Lad, for being with us, for the time that you've been with us. Thank you so much for your contribution and engagement. I will continue responding to your questions, and perhaps when you do find the time, you'll go back and revisit this live and watch the final part of it. But thank you so much for having been part of tonight. I hope you've done me the kind favor before you sign out of liking the broadcast, but also subscribing to the channel. Really. So, he's done the basics right, and I hold him in high regard because his record of 8 games managed, 6-1 and 1 drawn and lost 1, for me, I find that a very good report card. Whether Man United can transition and give him the job, I do not think he's done anything wrong not to deserve it. If they do not give it to him, it will be for other reasons than not him not deserving it or having not done the right things. So he has the trust of the players, and he's somebody that they can hold on to. You say, I liked and subscribed long ago. Thank you so much, United Lad. So really, for me, if I were Man United, first of all, the question I would be attempting to answer would be, what kind of project do we want? Do we want a very short-term successful project, or do we want a long-term project where we're going to sort of take a bit of time building this team? And because they've pressed the reset button on a good number of occasions. They did it with Louis van Gaal when they brought him in after sacking David Moyes. Then they brought in Jose Mourinho for quick fire, for returning to glory days. Then they did it again in terms of reset when they brought in Erik Ten Hag and subsequently Ruben Amorim to try and build that long-term project. So if you want to build a long-term project, I do not think Michael Carrick is your guy. I think there you go with a tactical manager, a manager that is obsessed with all those details, and give them the time and back them to succeed after a 2-3 year period. If you want quick gains in terms of quick success, stick with Michael Carrick, back him, give him the resources that he needs to get the players that he thinks he needs to add into that Man United squad, and bang, he'll get you going. In any case, he's already shown you that although they've not looked good in all games, he's capable. He's really, really capable. So, however, Man United have burnt their fingers before with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So that could sort of prejudice their decision making when it comes to Michael Carrick. But that's my view about him. Let's look at the other question that you had asked. You had asked me about, okay, what do you think of Bruno's free kicks? I think, first of all, I do not think we have any players in modern day football that are really excellent or exceptional when it comes to free kicks. All we have a couple of good players that will sporadically come out with a good free kick on one or two occasions. For example, I think we've seen Szoboszlai do it thrice this season. We've seen it, Bruno Fernandes do it on a couple of occasions, but it's not that consistent. They're not the Juninho Pernambucanos of this world. So I think he does okay with free kicks. But when it comes to scoring from direct free kicks, I do not think football no longer has those exceptional players overall. Then your next question was, do you think Cunha, Mbeumo, and Sesko are a good combination? Yeah, I think they are an okay combination. First of all, once you have Bruno Fernandes playing as your 8, you have Mbeumo to the right and Cunha to the left. It sounds like a combination bound for success. And the more they play together, the more they will learn their, playing patterns, running patterns, and and they look better. So I think it's an okay sort of thing to have. Then you had asked me about who I think is better between David De Gea and Seny Lomans. It's still early days for Seny Lomans, but I'll choose David De Gea Quintana on any given day. I do not know for how many years David De Gea was Manchester United's best player. I do not know, but it was for multiple seasons. Even when Sir Alex Ferguson was still around. So David De Gea, very decent shot stopper, not a good ball playing goalkeeper when it comes to using his feet, but when it comes to making the saves, shot stopping, I'd choose him any day over Seny Lomans. But Seny Lomans equally has looked good. He's looked okay. He's done brilliant. So I think he's a good goalkeeper. You just need to trust him, and he needs to have the competition that it's not a given that you will always be Man United's number one goalkeeper. No, he needs that serious competition, not this guaranteed kind of thing of Altai India is not good enough. Tom Heaton is already number 3, it's cast in stone and things like that. So yeah. Anyways, guys, it's been such a wonderful conversation as we speak. Nottingham Forest are yet to find the breakthrough against Midtjylland, and nor have Crystal Palace against Lanaka. But just to bring you up to speed, earlier on, Bologna and AC Roma settled for a 1-1 draw, while Aston Villa, through Oli Watkins, won away against Lille. Panathinaikos beat up against Real Betis by 0-0, while VfB Stuttgart lost to FC Porto by 2-1. Those were in the early kickoffs. As we speak, Celta Vigo are leading Lyon by 0-0. That game is in the 83rd minute. French Varos are leading Braga by 2-0, while Genk are leading Freiburg by 0-0. Nottingham Forest against Midtjylland is still goalless, while in the UEFA Conference League, you will allow me only pick out one game for you, and that's the game between Crystal Palace and AEK Larnaca is still goalless. So that's the first leg of the round of 16 for the UEFA Europa League and the UEFA Conference League that is ongoing as we speak. So I wish to re-emphasize or make this request again. First of all, beginning with the vote of thanks to all our new subscribers that have recently joined the Football Tribe UG community. Thank you so much for choosing Football Tribe UG. It's a football channel. We get to come on here every single day, Monday to Sunday, to discuss football. That's in the morning at 9 a.m. That's for Monday to Friday. On Saturday, we come at around 10 a.m. or thereabout. Then every single day at 11 p.m., that's Monday to Thursday. On Friday, we come at around 9 p.m. When we do the weekend preview and things like that. And then on Sunday, we do not have a morning broadcast, but we do come at night at 11 p.m. And we also have an 11 p.m. Sunday broadcast. So thank you so much to all our new subscribers. Please do not just stop at subscribing. Go over to the channel, watch all our content, our videos in the video section. Meanwhile, Midtjylland have scored. It's 1-0 against Nottingham Forest. It's 1-0. Please. So, for example, in recent times, we've put out videos discussing why the Premier League title race is not over yet. We've talked about my worries about Arsenal for the remainder of this season. You can go look through. Then we've talked about what type of manager do Manchester United need. We've also been revisiting that conversation. We've talked about the FA Cup draws for which Manchester City drew Liverpool, and fans were outraged by that draw. Then we did a video discussing PSG's fall off this season, being explained. That was prior, by the way, to the Chelsea game. So please forget not that bit of context to it. So, but anyway, you'll understand the points that we lay in that video. It's only about close on to 12 minutes. So please go over to the channel and watch all that content. Do not forget to leave us your thoughts in the comment section. I will also be down there in the community section to respond to some of those comments that are worthy reviewing or revisiting or responding to. So allow me wrap it up here tonight for tonight's discussion. But thank you so much, United Lad, for keeping us company. Thank you so much, Pedri, for having been part of the discussion. DLS Gamer, thank you so much. George Fuente, thank you so much. John Obiero, always appreciated for your time that you dedicate to be with us on the channel. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. For those that have liked the broadcast, those that were behind the scenes following the conversation, we do not take your love and support for granted. Stay blessed and have a wonderful rest of your night. Let's link up again tomorrow morning, which is a Friday morning. We'll be, we'll be starting to preview the weekend action that will be coming your way in as far as things are concerned, but also perhaps get to review some of the action that has transpired tonight in the UEFA Conference League, particularly with the Crystal Palace game and the Nottingham Forest games, respectively. We'll have the broader conversations about some of your major teams and what their responsibilities are for the rest of the season, what each game means in that regard. Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now.